Thanks for checking in to the State of Basketball podcast, episode 31. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Will each and every week, and we're going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
It's just basketball.
uh, whittling it down from 11 this week down to one. We're going to hyper focus, off-season type stuff, just hyper focusing down onto one school. And what school are we going to be talking about today, Jaren?
The Screagles, Southern Indiana University. University of Southern Indiana. Wow.
Come on, man. Come on, disrespectful.
I got too excited. I got ahead of myself.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Southern Indiana. So we talked about it on Twitter. We put this out, so it shouldn't come as a surprise. But we are going to be joined by assistant coach at University of Southern Indiana, the Screagles, John Spruance. So he is an assistant coach over there, and we're going to be interviewing him, kind of talking about what it's like down, in Evansville. They've got another school in the same city. What's it like recruiting against them? What's it like having them in the same city? What's it like moving to D1? Because, it's a different landscape than D2. So we're gonna kind of talk about that stuff with him. So let's get him in here. Let's get this thing rolling. John, how you doing?
I'm doing well, fellas. I'm doing well. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you, even though, first impressions, I butchered the school name.
You blew it. You blew it. And I will tell you, for everybody that's listening from down here from Evansville, like there's a very, very hard line between people who understand and appreciate the term Screagle, and then there's a lot of people that never use the term Screagle, and it has to be Screaming Eagles. So you gotta pick and choose it wisely, okay?
It's a fine line. I like it. I mean, we're up in Fort Wayne, so we don't really. I don't know that I've ever actually been into Evansville other than a quick drive by going farther south, but I want to, and I need to get down there. I need to see Screaming Eagles Arena next season.
Yes, sir. It's one of the best, man. It's unbelievable. We'll get you guys down for a game without a doubt.
Be awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been to the Ford Center, so I've been in Evansville, but I think that was
the
years
enemy,
ago.
man.
I mean, it's a hockey rink at the end of the day. It is what it is.
And back then, it was Southern Indiana was still D2, so it weren't even the enemy really that much, I don't think. But no, yeah, we definitely want to get down, and we'll plan on it.
Anytime, you guys are always welcome.
All right, so let's get some rolling. So we've got some questions for Coach Sprue, and we're just going to go through these. Like I said, talk about what it's like to be, in the transition from Division II to Division I, what the landscape is like now, how a team like Southern Indiana can kind of compete when we've, hear about people like Great Osobor getting allegedly $2 million, right, to go play somewhere. So it's like, how does a team like, the Screaming Eagles compete against that? But before we get into that, my first question for you, I know you're an alum of the MIAA like I am. I believe you went to Hope. So what are your thoughts on, Trine winning the D3 national championship?
It's awesome, man. I'll date myself and say when I was playing, it was still called Tri-State, and no disrespect to them back in the day, but they weren't very good. But it's awesome. I mean, the MIAA, when I was coming up, I graduated from Hope in 2010, and I think they finished building DeVos in 2005. And DeVos Fieldhouse was just unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. And I mean, even still to this day, I think they always lead, the country in attendance. And it's good. It's great because it's always been a really, really, really tough league, and obviously, it's paid off, and obviously, coach is doing a great job. And it helps when you have a facility like that, and obviously, location. Being close to Michigan, being close to Chicago, Ohio, he can kind of get into different markets to get some really good guys. So it's awesome. We were close when I was playing. I think we lost in the Sweet 16 or Elite Eight my freshman year, and then it was either the Elite Eight or the Final Four my sophomore year before I stopped playing. So we were close, but we never. Van Wieren was at Hope for, I don't know, 300 years it seemed like, but he never got it. So it's good for the league, man. It's good for the league.
Yeah, we when I was at Trine, I mean, the basketball team was okay. The women's team was a lot more successful than the men's team, but like you said, built that nice arena, kind of got things going. But man, not fans of Hope in a not fans of Hope, not fans of Calvin. Did not.
Come on, man.
It's
Come
like
on, man.
it's like the Ohio States and the Michigans of the country. It's like you just win everything. It's not fair. But
Hey, man, when I was around and we were doing it, no disrespect to Bill Saul, who's a good friend, but hope plays, hope wins, baby. So I was hope is where it's at, man. It's a good
yeah.
spot.
Well, all you got to do, if you want to win national championship D3 is they played 4 home games and then they played 2 in, the semifinals and the championship in Fort Wayne. So didn't have to
Right,
travel more than 45 minutes. I
right.
mean,
It's the best. It's the
that's the way to
best.
do it.
It's
So
the
you
best.
don't get that at the Division 1 level.
No, we had that a little at the Division 2 level, but I mean, even when you end up playing the same team so many times, especially the D3 level, to get out of your region, and it was the same for D2. It's just they need to start
Mhm.
looking at some other ways to do stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So our next question. So you started your you were at UND with Coach
Mhm.
Gerard. Kind of tell us about your career at that point and kind of how you ended up at USI.
Yeah, so I graduated from Hope in 2010. I stopped playing after my sophomore year. Started coaching high school up in Michigan, so I was helping out with Holland High School and then the West Michigan Lakers AAU, and get a call. So I think graduate in May. I get a call end of May from University of Hawaii and Gib Arnold, and he offers me a video coordinator job, and he's like, "Are you interested in this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, man. Like,
You're like Hawaii?
perfect, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Hawaii." I was like, "Yeah, like, sure." I don't hear anything from him the entire summer, so I'm back. I'm working at my buddy's dad's factory doing metal pressing, doing high school, doing AAU, and back, this is 2010. Back then, obviously, D1 was all still starting on October 15th. Gib called me on October 12th and said if I wanted the job, I needed to be in Hawaii on Friday.
What?
It was a Tuesday. I talked with my parents, and I was in Hawaii on Saturday to do a job that I had no idea what I was doing. Packed a bag. I had no place to live. I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. So just took a chance and went out there and did that for a year. Um, didn't think I wanted to do college basketball. It was just the craziness. And obviously, for a first job being in the WAC back then was Idaho, Boise State, Louisiana Tech,
Yeah.
New Mexico State. People were like, "Oh, you're in Hawaii." It's like I was tired, brother. I was
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
So did that for a year. Came back, came back to Michigan, moved back, and was doing high school and AAU and trying to get some sales jobs here and there. But it was hard because I wanted to be in the gym at 2 o'clock with the high school guys
Mhm.
and being able to do that. So talked to a good friend of mine, Ryan Marks, who has kind of bounced around everywhere. He's currently at St. Francis, Illinois, and Chicago, and Scott Trost at Lewis University had an opening for a GA position, and I was like, "Hey, like you're good friends with him, put me on, see what we can do." So I interviewed with Trost for the GA job, and I actually didn't end up getting it. He gave it to Ryan Haggerty, who played at Wisconsin Milwaukee and had a decent career there, and Haggerty lived out in that area, and so I didn't get it. So I called Ryan. I was like, "Hey, man, like I want to get back into college coaching. What do I need to do?" And he was like, "You need to go out there and you need to work every day like you have a real job, and eventually it will pay off for you." So the first 2 years at Lewis University, I volunteered. I didn't get any money. I was staying at my parents' house. I grew up in downtown Chicago, so I was driving, depending on Chicago traffic, 40 minutes to an hour and a half out to Lewis
Wow.
every day. Was doing scouts, trying to fit in, where I could fit in. And that second year there, I really kind of delved into the recruiting. And obviously, we had Max Struess, who's now playing with Cavs, and we won a lot of games. We were really successful. So the 2 years of volunteering turned into 3 years with Trost as a full time, his top guy. Won a lot of games. Won a GLVC championship. Kind of reached the point where I felt like accomplished everything that we really could in Lewis, just from a D2s aren't all created equal, right? Like some D2s don't give Pell, the facilities, stuff to get into school. Just felt like we had kind of reached the peak of what we could accomplish, and where we were at. So Stan actually had an opening at UIndy. His assistant Paul, who just got the job at IU. It's going to take me some time to not call it IUPUI, but
Yeah.
Paul Casaro just got the job, and so Paul left to go to Purdue Fort Wayne, and he had an opening, and it just kind of worked out that Stan, knowing me through our teams in Lewis and competing against each other, it was a pretty easy transition for me to come over there when he had that opening. So I moved there, and I guess that first year was 2018, 2019. Did that first year, 2019, 2020 was the COVID year. We were number one in the region, set to host the NCAA tournament, and then, COVID kind of had
We
it.
all know what happened there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was kind of like a surreal moment when I got the USI job of like, I've had 4 jobs and 3 of them were all in the same conference.
Yeah.
But like the familiarity, it allowed me pretty seamlessly to move from place to place because I was competing against these athletes, right? Like we were scouting those guys, we knew them, the D2 world of what we were considered, when we were obviously with Struce and Delaney Blaylock and those guys, like we're telling guys we're competing for a national championship, right? Like UIndy's teams with Jordan Lloyd and Dejan Parker and Lucas Barker, like, I mean, they were unbelievable, right? Like G had a stretch of 6 years in a row, NCAA tournaments. Jordan Lloyd played in the NBA for the Raptors. I mean, they were the number 1 team in the country. So you're talking about like what we would refer to as like the blue blood programs of the Division II level. And then obviously Southern Indiana, you take it a whole nother level of, they built a facility in, 2018, 2019. That was the same year that they were in the Final Four. I mean, just the history of the place. So you're talking about you're building and you're constantly taking steps up. But now, I'll be entering my 5th year and kind of stumbled my way into a top D1 assistant job. So, I'm not too bad about it.
You say you stumbled, your way into it, but you sat there for what, 2 years, volunteered your time and really, really put in the work. So, I mean, definitely paid off for you. I mean, that is like a story that just really warms my heart because you see someone like yourself who really worked, really wanted to do something, make a difference, put in the work for people who are not yourself. And it has paid off for you in a great way. So I think that's awesome.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, especially when you say, when you took that video coordinator position that you were having second guesses of, did you even want to coach college, right? Like, now here you are in a great position. Like it's awesome to hear.
It was a whirlwind. And I think, obviously some other people are going to listen to this that are, thinking about getting into business, and you got to be able to take a chance when you think something is worth it. Right. And I think one of the greatest things in life is regret. And you can always look back on something and say, hey man, like I tried it and it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Right. But like, at least I can say I went out and tried to do it, and there's enough guys in this industry that all have stories like that. And I think this younger generation who's seen, well, Coach Cal has a $12 million contract. It's like, hey man, like good for him, man. But I can tell you at the lower levels, it's not that, you know what I mean? And like, you got to have a genuine love for, what it's always been. And I think obviously we're going to get into it a little bit more later, but the landscape has changed where you're not going to see these kids grow up and develop for 4 or 5 years. The reason why we got into this of, shaping young men, and obviously we can still do that, but it's changed dramatically of, how you're impacting these kids' lives on a daily basis is still the same, but the long-term longevity with them isn't, and like we were fortunate in that first year when we had Jacob Polakovich and Jelani Simmons and Trevor Lakes, like those guys are family. We had them 5 years, like Jelani we had for 3, Trevor, 4 of his 6, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to get those things. And, as you go through this, you're going to work for people that are good. You're going to work for people that are bad. And I, we try to tell our guys all the time, what we're trying to teach you and what we're trying to implement is nothing that we haven't experienced. Like when I was at Hawaii, we were in the office at 5, 6 in the morning. We left at 10, and that's when we weren't on the road. So people are like, "Oh, you're in Hawaii." It's like, yeah, I sat in a cubicle all day, right? Like,
never got to see it.
Right.
Yeah.
To be in Indiana, right? Like,
Yeah.
So there's levels to it. And, obviously I'm fortunate that, I'm still in a position that I am, and, nothing has changed. I'm still, competitive as ever. And obviously this landscape is changing, and it's a new goal, right? Like we were always trying to say we're trying to compete for, a Division II national championship, and now we're trying to rewrite the history of this university, and I think that's a pretty awesome thing that we get to do.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome just to see, like you said, just going to Hawaii for 1 year, taking a chance, seeing how it works out. But yeah, seeing how, the landscape has changed with these players. You get them for 1 year, but you got to make the most out of that 1 year. But kind of a trend that we've seen, in college basketball, more recently at the Division I level. I'm sure it's probably been more common even at the D2, D3 level, is hiring alums. Indiana's done it, Purdue's done it. So many people are hiring alums to, coach their teams. And, Gerard's an alum of
Mhm.
Southern Indiana. So I assume he gets the culture and he gets how the school works. How much do you think that helps the program? Because we weren't really plugged in to the Southern Indiana world when he got hired on. So
Right.
did he seek the job out? Did they seek him out? Do you know how that kind of all went down?
Right. So like obviously like Coach G's playing pedigree is like unbelievable, right? Like two-time division national player of the year, like won a national championship. I think like his career here, he lost like, I don't know, something crazy, like 8 games, like, I
Yeah.
mean, he was unbelievable. And Bruce has come out publicly and said, if Coach G's knees could have held up, he'd been the best pro that he ever coached, the best player he ever coached. And so, obviously you see that
Wow.
from afar, right? So like I'm at Indy, and Southern Indiana is in the Final Four here, right? So they play it at the Ford Center. The D2
Mhm.
Elite Eight is, and Stan is selected to coach the D2 NABC All Star game. So he invites us all down. It was the first time I've ever experienced Coach G in Evansville, right? So like, we're going out to these places, like we're seeing these alums and stuff. And I'm talking about like downtown Main Street. Stan is walking. People are double parking their cars, getting out like Superman Stan, Superman Stan. And I was just like, I was blown away. I was blown away. I was like, there's no way. Like, it's just Coach G, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. But I mean,
He's just a hero.
here, and the coolest thing about this community, and it was that first year that we moved down here, so it would have been 2020, 2021. Bruce agreed for us to play an exhibition down at Auburn, and you
Mhm.
still have the same people who came and supported Bruce when he coached at Southern Indiana in 1995. Those same people are on a bus coming down to watch our game. Like, that's how crazy these diehards are at Southern Indiana. So obviously, I think Coach G being alum here, twofold. Like, obviously in the community, and obviously where things are trending right now, having a face of somebody that people have known for a really long time, and
Mhm.
who obviously was part of the most successful, era of our basketball program is huge, right? When it comes to local businessmen, women, people who want to give to the program, it's obviously huge, and obviously understanding, and we try to say this to recruits all the time. I think he has more in stake than most, right? Like, when you understand what it is, and your name is up on the wall and your picture's up on the wall and you're in the Hall of Fame, like, it means a lot to you, right? Like, you're not just going to take this kind of lightly. So like, I think it's huge. And obviously the culture, and who Bruce was when he was here, and even like Rick Curtis was an assistant, and then obviously, what Rodney built. It's obviously huge, and it's a huge piece of his heart. He met his wife here, graduated from here. So that's where it's like, as we kind of make this transition and, bringing it in, we're not trying to do this half-ass, part of my language, right? We're trying to be all in of what we
Yeah.
can do, and we're trying to rewrite these history books of this place to kind of lead us into this next, chapter of our history. But it's awesome, man. Like, the people love them, and those same people are coming out to our games and supporting us. And our arena's second to none, and it wasn't built for anything other than than basketball, man. So I think it helps a lot, having a guy who's been as successful as Coach G was here, and obviously, the history and the pedigree of this program when we were D2 is, second to none. So we're excited about it, and I know Coach G is really excited about keeping this process going, and building on it.
Yeah, when you've got players, coming in and, moving on so quick, when you've got a coach who treats it as more than a job, who's really invested in every part of the community, that, can get you through, I feel like, so much. Good times, it'll, carry you even higher, but bad times, it'll kind of carry you through and say, okay, we can trust him. Like, we know he cares. He's not here to just, use us as a stepping stone. Like, he actually wants this program to be successful.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's the biggest thing is we made this adjustment and we've gone through the transition is that there was, let's be real, there was a lot of opposition to this move, right? People were like, hey, you guys are a Division II powerhouse, right? Like, and that was across the board in a lot of sports, right? Like baseball won a natty, softball won a natty, cross country and track has always been, still are in the OVC now, like just has been a standard. So there was a lot of backlash when we made this move. And I think that comes with, like we have this responsibility, this university, to not only raise our brand, but raise the standard of basketball as we kind of make this move. And I think when you have an alum and you have a guy that's been there, who's been at the peak and understands what the success is, then everybody's going to fall in line of what it is. We all have the same mission of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's the best thing about it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That kind of, leads into our next question. You talked about a little bit of, what the transition was like. There was some backlash. But how early on did you know that the transition was going to take place? Like, was it like when Coach G took over, he's like, I'm getting us to D1? Or was it like, okay, we're having a lot of success here. Like the whole, all of athletics is being successful. Let's, plan this out.
It was really that, I don't remember the exact date they broke ground on the arena. I do remember Alex Stein hitting a game winner on us when we were at UND to shut the pack down, right? The old arena. When we came down for that game, when we came down for that All-Star game, the president of the university walked us through the facility. It was still being constructed. It wasn't finished yet. And you're looking around and you're going, no disrespect to Missouri S&T of the GLVC, but like this is not being built, to play Missouri S&T, right? Like, and you were going through and you're just kind of like looking around and going, holy cow, and obviously, the 1920 season ends, Rodney retires, the job is open. Obviously, Stan's name was a hot topic just because of who he was. And obviously I'm not in those discussions, but I would be hard pressed, if that wasn't something that was coming up of, hey man, like we're making this move to D1, obviously an added incentive. You can come here, you can be back with your, where you graduated from, where you played, but like on the horizon is going to be this next step. So I would say probably the first step without a doubt was them building the facility. It's a $70 million endeavor.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. We still have the pack, which gives us 3 practice courts. So we have a great practice facility. But the facility, when Screaming Eagles Arena was being built, that was the bell was ringing across all of GLVC.
Yeah, there were whispers.
Yes. Yeah. Without a doubt.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we again, I think we told you this. We have not been down, but
We got to get you down, man.
I saw some videos of, I don't remember when it was, maybe like your last home game. And I mean, it was rocking. Like it was packed in there.
And it's changed a lot, right? So like our women's team this year was like unbelievable, right? Like won the OVC regular season conference championship. They beat UIC in the first round of the women's NIT. And the way the women's NIT is set up is that like Wisconsin had a bye, right? So like a Big Ten team had a bye. Well, and we lucked out. We had Braxton Jones on an official visit when they're playing against UIC, and the arena is rocking. It is rocking. UIC got 24 or whatever the women's shot clock is, 35. They got 3 shot clock violations back to back possessions just because the arena was rocking. Like they have done such a great job, man. And like the women, unfortunately lost to Wisconsin. They were up 20 on Wisconsin. And the way they got the home game against Wisconsin in the second round was whoever runs the WNIT was watching the game against UIC. And they're going like, oh my gosh, like your guys' arena, the atmosphere, your guys' fans, like
gotta be there.
And that's how they got, we hosted Wisconsin. It's unheard of, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's crazy. I can't remember if it was Carbondale our first year, if it was Indiana State our first year. We had 3,600, out of the 4,800. And it gets loud and it gets rocking, man. So we need to get you guys down there.
For sure. So, USI won the D2 national championship in 95. We talked about that when they were coached by Bruce Pearl. Um, he even when they played Indiana this year, they had like some interviews with him and he was talking about, just his time at USI and how much he loved it down there in Evansville. So, what do you know about that period? What do you know just about USI basketball history? I mean, obviously you got to be well versed now that you're there, but
I
what
mean,
can
it
you
was
kind of
even like,
tell us about it?
yeah. I mean, when I started at Lewis in 2013, 14, you looked at Southern Indiana's roster and you're like Keith DeWitt, who was like 7'2", and transferred from a Division I school, and you're like, you're not beating these guys, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been this kind of standard of excellence, especially in the GLVC, and obviously Bellarmine was up there, and they've obviously made the transition, and Scotty does a great job, but I mean, through the years, it's impossible not to think about all the things that USI has accomplished when they were a Division II school. You know, when we went down there for that exhibition game, I think it's really only the first or the second time I'd ever met Bruce in person, and just like hearing him talk and who he is and the personality he has, like if you guys were in a room with Bruce Pearl, he would make you think that you've known him for 20 years. He's your best friend. Like, call him anytime. You know what I mean? Like, and he was just that guy. He's so galvanizing, which is why he's such a huge part of this community still to this day. And obviously, his time here, and his progression of where he was at in his career at the time, and how he used USI to springboard to get him, up to this. I mean, he's killing it, man. He's at a great spot, and so I
Mhm.
think the history of this school, and I think I said when I first got the job when we were leaving UIndy, and ESPN Radio down here interviewed me, I was like, I have a chance to come to a blue blood Division II program, and that's how it's always been viewed with the success that they've had, nationally, regionally, in the GOVC, obviously the Final Four appearance in 18-19. So it's hard to ignore the Division II history of this university, and obviously, at heart, besides that 1 year at Hawaii, I'm a Division II guy, through and through. So, it's a huge part of where we were, who we are currently, and it's still there as we kind of make this transition of going to D1.
That's awesome. That again leads us into the next question of, do you use that past D2 success on the recruiting cycle, or do you mostly focus on, what we can do now at USI as a Division I program?
Right. I mean, I think especially like last year, right? Like going into that first year, I mean, what are you going to say, right? Like all you can do is fall back on where we were, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real, right? Like if you are a high level Division II program, you're recruiting against low level D1s, right? Like
Yep.
if you want to win the GOVC, you need to get Division I players. Plain and simple, right? Go back and look at Bellarmine's rosters when they were top 5 in the country. It's riddled with Division I players, and that's when the one-time transfer thing kind of kicked in, right? Like if multiple transfers were allowed, we wouldn't have gotten Jelani Simmons when we got Jelani, right? Jelani played sparingly at Youngstown State. If Jelani could go and not have to sit out, Jelani would have gone D1. He would have,
Mm,
right? You go back and you ask any Division II coach before all of that, kids were coming down to D2 because they didn't have to sit out, right? Hey,
Yep.
do you want to do an extra year of school or you want to hoop? The majority of
right.
guys are going to say, hey, man, I want to hoop.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if that much has really changed on our end of what it is. We're always trying to recruit an athlete that is a higher level than where we feel like we are, right? So when we were Division II and we're trying to recruit against Division I, hey man, like look at their gym, right? Look at their attendance, right? Like look at their wins and losses, right? These are what we've done the past year. So going in that first year, we didn't have to replace as much as what we kind of had to going into second year, but you're always talking about the history of what it is. I think as years go on and we get further removed from that Division II success, I think the biggest thing that we try to sell everybody on is rewriting the history books. You have a very unique opportunity to come in here and leave your legacy in a matter that nobody else has ever done at this university, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's what we try to do, because hey, you look up at the roof, right? All the banners that we have are Division II banners, right? We're going to hang the CBI banner up there because that was an accomplishment. We're still looking for our first postseason victory, right? Like there's so many things that we're trying to accomplish at this level. Yeah, you want to look back and you want to say, hey man, like this is what's built us to this level, right? Like let's be real. The teams that have transitioned from our conference recently, like Bellarmine, obviously, us, Bellarmine doesn't transition to Division One if they were a terrible Division Two school.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
They have no market, right? So you have to look back on the past of what it is to build us to this point. But I think the further we get removed from what it is, and like kids now, like say kids now, like we're that far removed from the Division Two era. It's just like guys are solely focused on Division One because they don't have to do that drop anymore, and like when we were D2, like we used to pull up. Bruce did a clip. Auburn played UIndy. They went to like double or triple OT, and Bruce is on his like pregame, and he's talking about like high level Division Two is better than Division One because you got all those transfers, you got those kickbacks. The landscape has changed. It's changed a lot, but I don't think we'd be where we were right without the history of who we were, if that kind of makes sense. So I think it's something we always talk about, right? We show the national championship, trophies. We talk about the All-Americans, obviously the pros that have gone on, to be super successful and make a lot of money. But, we're looking for guys that are hungry to come in here and, look up at the D2 banners and be like, let's slide those over to the side a little bit and let's hang some new banners up there. So like I said, it's a unique situation. I think it'll, ever be changing and ever be adapting to the new rules and what kids want. But I think, like I said, we can't be where we are right now without the history of who we were. So we're fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, winning is winning, and when you know how to win, I mean, you're going to find a way, and you're just going to keep it rolling. So, Division One, Division Two, doesn't matter. You guys are going to do it. But let's kind of talk about a little bit about this past season. So when Jaren and I talked about, Southern Indiana, and we would watch your games, and it was just like, oftentimes we would be like, this team could be second in the OVC right now, but they have, I don't remember how many games it was that you guys lost by single digits, or
8.
were like, it was 8.
8.
Yeah, and so we were like, those could have gone either way. And so how do you keep the locker room positive during a time like that? Because obviously that can weigh on people. You're so close. Like, did you guys have to step in a lot? Did the locker room kind of take care of itself?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard, right? And I think as we made this transition, right, like when we were Division Two, we just scheduled regional opponents because you had to have good regional ranking in order to get to the NCAA tournament. It's all you need to do. Okay, well now it's like guys are calling us and offering us $120,000 to play games and stuff. And, like, let's be real, the roster that we had, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, the roster we had in 22, 23, going into now 23, 24, we had the 54th toughest schedule non-conference in the country.
Yeah.
In the country, right? So we're on the road with A10 teams, Patriot League, ACC, Big Ten. Like, I mean, we played a gauntlet. Man. And I think the hardest thing of what it is that when we were Division Two, we used to play like a GLIAC GLVC crossovers. The first 2 games of the season, you played back to back. So like we would play like Saginaw and Northwood. If you lost to Northwood, no disrespect to Northwood, if you lost to Northwood, you might not get into the NCAA tournament when it's all said and done because of the regional rankings.
Yeah.
Right. And now as we go into this Division One thing, well, your non-conference record really for us right, we're a one bid league, right? Let's call it what it is. Your non-conference record doesn't really matter. So how can you keep morale high? How can you get guys to be playing their best basketball, when you come to conference season? And we're still trying to figure it out. Like obviously we scheduled ourselves probably too hard last year. But with that being said, we lose to a really good A10 school in LaSalle by 1 point. We're up 13 on Bucknell at half. We're winning at Duke. Right, we lose to Bowling Green by 2. We were close with Fort Wayne. If Kaufman's listening, Rashid should have been thrown out of the game for blocking the shot with his shoe. Right, should have changed the whole thing. So it's like it's hard. It was also hard, and I know we'll get into it. It was also hard that the guys that we had returning on this team, really good players, weren't thrown into the fire of Division I basketball in 22-23, right? So we didn't have a roster of guys who had that playing experience and knew what it was. And I think for coaches is just trying to say, like, we did a lot of really good things, right? Like the first half of Duke, we're just going like, what are we doing, right? Like
I
we're
was
winning it.
on
We're winning the
fire on
camera.
Twitter. Oh my goodness. I was like, guys, it's gonna happen.
You know, like we go to Moorhead and we beat Moorhead with a huge second half, right? And it's just like, I think the hardest thing for us is when we were Division II, was way easier for us to out talent guys,
Yeah.
right? Like we just had nicer stuff. We could give guys Pell. Like it was just easier to out talent guys. And now it really comes down to those single possessions of trying to win and valuing it. And I think that's the biggest adjustment for our guys is not only the consistency and what it takes to win, but just understanding that, like, fellas, like at any moment in this game, like every possession has a life pulse, and like you need to win that, right? Like because
Mm-hmm.
we go 3-5 in one possession games, and just like you guys said in the recap, like blink of an eye, shoot, if we finish the game against Bucknell, right, we win that, and we beat LaSalle, you're going into that Duke game saying, hey, we've killed this road trip. We've been on the road for 9 days. We went 2-1.
Yeah.
But it just that small margin, all of a sudden you're 0-3, you're 0-2 going into Duke, kind of expecting, right, to be 0-3, and you know it's just, I think that's, let's be real, right? Like we've always won, right? This year is
Mm-hmm.
the most games I've ever lost in my coaching career. All right, put that in perspective, okay? And I don't think Coach G has lost this many games since one of his like first 2 years at UIndy. So I mean, it takes a toll. It takes a toll. But it wasn't like we were just getting like drugged through the mud. You know what I
No.
mean? Like there was still a
Right.
lot of really good things that we could tell our guys of, like, fellas, a little bit more consistency, right? Just a little bit more here and there. Like we're right there. And I think that was, if you ask a lot of guys around the league, and a lot of people have said to Coach G, like, we didn't have the most talent in the league, but we juiced the orange for everything that it got. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And our guys played hard. You know, a little bit more consistency, but I truly believe coming into this year, we didn't have enough guys that were proven game guys at the Division I level, right? Like our leading guy coming back was Jerry, who was unbelievable for us this year.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry didn't play a whole lot when we won
Yeah.
16 games the year before. You know what I mean? So like it takes a lot. You know, it takes a lot. Winning is hard at this level. You know, so it's hard. It's hard. Guys get down, you know, and you always try to break it down into, hey, like the non-conference season is one thing, and when we hit season schedule, our conference schedule, we're saying like, hey, it's a blank slate, fellas. Like we can rewrite and do whatever we want to do, you know. And I think it's a testament to us and our guys, you know. And this isn't a knock on anybody. SEMO goes from winning as a fifth seed in 22-23 to not making the conference tournament, you know, and like
Mm-hmm.
we squeaked in there. I don't know if we were the most deserving team to get into the conference tournament because of our last couple games, but you know, you got to look at small successes and keep encouraging these guys. And you know, the competitive fire of who we are as coaches and the accountability never changed. You know, Coach G goes into a Duke game saying we're going to beat Duke, right? We're not just going in there to take the check and go home. And that's the competitive spirit of what it is. So you got to keep morale high. And you know, with the changing landscape of basketball, it's hard too. Of, you know, luckily we had Jack Milkey is a great locker room dude, you know, and those guys and the more guys that can do that. But as we've said, with the changing landscape, it's hard to keep consistency within your culture, within your program, you know. So there was for sure, you know, some down times from
Mm-hmm.
both coaching staff and players. But, you know, like I said, I think it's a testament to the guys that at the end of the year we were in the position that we were, and we can look at the schedule and look at some things and highlight some good, knowing that, hey, if we would have done this just a little bit better, we'd be looking at a totally different, you know, outcome for the season. But you know, making the conference tournament is obviously still, you know, something that we want to accomplish.
Yeah. You know, I remember, so correct me if I'm wrong. You guys might not have been up at halftime, but the first half against Michigan State, like you guys were leading.
Hey, no, so I think we were down like
It was close, right?
we played them even in the second half, and of
Oh,
course, like,
that's
hey,
what it was.
as the guy who schedules, right, our games.
Yeah.
Thank you, James Madison, right, for just unleashing the fury of the Spartans on
Yeah.
us. You
You
know,
either felt
yeah,
you either like, there's 2 ways you can think of that game. It's like James Madison did it, we can do it.
they're beatable.
They made what, 0 3-pointers in that game or 1?
Yeah,
We can do it too. Or it's like, "Oh, no, they're gonna absolutely."
they
Tom
were coming
Izzo's,
out.
you know how Tom Izzo is. I mean, they're
Oh,
gonna feel this one.
so
Uh,
we go in, we practice. The women had a game in the Breslin the day before ours, so we're practicing in the practice facility, and we go over our time, and there's managers and everything running around. It's like 9 o'clock at night. Izzo, full staff, full players, because I think they also shot like 40% from the free throw line.
yeah.
Everybody is back at like 9:15. They're all shooting free throws. And I just looked at Coach G. I said, man, we might be in for it, man. But second half we settled in, we hit some shots. I mean, it's, to be honest, like we lucked out a little bit when we went to Duke because it was over Thanksgiving break. So there weren't as many students. So it was a
Yeah.
Jerseys
game where
weren't
like they
out
let
like normal.
there was like a little pocket of them, and then they let like general admissions fill in those stands, and it was still rocking. Don't get me wrong, but like Michigan State is a totally different beast.
Yeah. It's so
They
much
were
bigger
loud.
too.
Oh, way more fans, and obviously like with them having just lost, I think there's a little bit more
Yeah,
angst in the
more juice
crowd
in
and
the
stuff.
building.
But like I think obviously you go to a Big Ten ACC school, like let's be real, when we look at those games, you're probably not going in expecting to be uber competitive, but to be even in the second half up on Duke. We were a little disappointed with the SLU game, but like it was really the first time that group had been out on the court together, in a live setting.
Yeah.
And it November hits hard, man, especially you guys know we don't have football, so we got to generate some revenue.
Yep.
And but those times too, like we'll look back, these guys will look back at we ended up flying to Philly, driving up to Bucknell, back down to Philly, going to Duke. We were on the road for 9 days, and it was just us, and doing team activities and bonding, and we practiced at NC State. We obviously went to Duke, and
Mhm.
I mean, it's a once in a lifetime experience, man.
Right.
So as much as it sucked to have the record, and we were struggling for that first Division I win for a while. I think for the most part the guys kept decent spirits because I think they've shown through that non-conference schedule that they could do it. And I think it led to some wins, obviously in the OVC.
Yeah, absolutely. Good news for you, Jaren, on your all-state of basketball team. You got Jack Milky on there, so that's going to help your locker room out. Jaren did draft Jack Milky from your guys' team, so
Milk
good news
is
for you.
he's the man. He's the man. I mean, he's one of the most brilliant kids I've ever been around. I mean, he is absolutely. I think he was like a 4.5 and a 32 when we took him out of high school.
Wow.
He wants to be a forensic accountant. So I hope your guys' tax information is up to date because he's going to be coming for you. But I mean, just he has a composite white notebook for every summer, and like this kid is a machine, dude. And I think last summer he was like something like 75,000 makes during the summer, the 6 weeks that we were here. He's a gym rat. He's obviously
Wow.
a great culture kid. He's doing everything he can off the court. I mean, can't say enough good things about the milkman. He's a good dude.
And go to his basketball camp if you're listening. We're too
That's
old,
camp.
but
That's camp. That's Campion.
oh, that's Campion.
Camps.
My
Yeah,
bad,
Yep.
yeah,
That's Campion. That's
yeah.
Campion. Yeah. Shout out Mill, Wisconsin.
man.
But so let's I want to rewind a little bit and talk about recruitment just
Yep.
a little bit more. Obviously, you're in Evansville, same city. Are you guys recruiting against the Aces for a lot of players, or is it kind of just like you're your own little, you've got your set of players that you go after and they've got their own?
Right. I mean, it's tough, right? Like, let's not sugarcoat the process of all the things that the NCAA changes on a daily basis. The fact that we still have a 4-year ban from postseason play to me is absurd. It's
I
absurd.
I rant about this almost monthly on our show. It is
Yeah.
so stupid.
It's pretty wild. They're still taking our money and doing all that stuff. So let's be real. That is a thorn in our side, right? Like not being eligible for postseason play is a tough thing, And with that being said, the way that everything is transitioning, right? Like our guy Isaiah Swope like goes to Indiana State.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana State should have been an NCAA tournament team. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no doubt about it, right?
I mean,
But
they were runner-up in the NIT. I mean, what
it
more
was
proof do you want than that?
unbelievable. But they had an unbelievable year, and you talk about a road game against Illinois State being that factor of what it is, and it's just everybody is naive in this process, and kids are naive in this process because they will listen to a coach. Nolan Coswell came to us the second year, but Nolan's first year he was at Tennessee Tech. Well, Tennessee Tech recruited him and was like, "Hey, man, like USI can't go to the tournament." Tennessee Tech hasn't been to the tournament since 1963.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so like there's levels to what we're talking about of what it is, and so it's hard to recruit. And I do think, right, like Evansville. Let's be real. Go to Ken Palm. Go to the conference rankings. The Valley is a better league than we are.
Yeah.
They are. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to sugarcoat it. They are. I will also say that we won more Missouri Valley games our first year of Division One than they did, right? There's levels to what it is. We don't run into recruiting guys a lot, maybe like Stephen Olawani, like, they have some pretty rigorous academic standards to get into their university. But it's a little bit of a higher level, and obviously they're going to punch and push, tournament eligible, and they went to the CBI. Well, we went to the CBI last year. You know what I mean? So we'll run into them downtown when we both have recruits, but we haven't done a bunch of knocking heads, and obviously we hope at some point we can play them because I think it'll be good for the city. So
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, you guys can that's a good point. You guys aren't eligible. Like you guys can't go to the tournament, but the schools you might be recruiting against won't go to the tournament. You just say
and
they
that's
won't go to the
and
tournament.
that's
They haven't been.
and that's like the thing of just and let's be real, like this business, we're all salesmen to a degree. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But like, dude, you can Google when you win. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's not this thing, and even to the extent of, right, like Preston Lee's Moorhead, right? Well, Preston probably had a real good thing of just being able to be like, hey, like if we don't go to the NCAA tournament, we are
Mhm.
going to go to the NIT because we're going to win the OVC regular season
Yeah.
championship, right? Well, now that's out the window
Oh my
because
God.
the NCAA has changed the rules of the NIT. So the regular season champion isn't going there. So the majority of us at this mid to low are always going to be looking for the pay to play tournaments,
Mhm.
whether that's the CBI or the CIT or whatever else is going to be created, in this vacuum, this void of what is missing. People need to be real with themselves. Programs need to be real with themselves. Student athletes need to do their research and be like, oh, well, 1963 was a pretty long time ago,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just it's always going to be something. It always comes up, and we try not to sugarcoat it. And we try to sign stuff with the Gazelle so we can get an invite to the CBI and keep that relationship with those guys because I think it's important. But like it's a super dated rule, right? And we
Yeah.
talked about our women's program. The women's NIT is not associated with the NCAA. So our women's team gets to host NIT games. They win the regular season, they go to the tournament. Well, we don't have that, right? And like we don't get that experience, and it just it's a hard sell. I'll just say that. And I think
Yeah.
the way we get through that and we get by it is who we are as people. Like who I am on this podcast with you guys is pretty much who I am on a daily basis. We tell recruits all the time that family for us is huge. I have a 7-year-old son. Like he comes to practices, he's with our players all the time. He looks at those guys like his older brothers. Family's huge. We're gonna have the guys over. We're gonna have that. So the people that you want to be surrounded with, at the end of the day, you want to be surrounded by good people and people that want to work for you, right? I think there's a lot of coaches in this business that are transactional in the sense of, hey man, like you come in here, we'll win some games, you graduate, we'll see you around, and it's not really what we try to do. And I think that goes back to us as Division II guys of just like we had guys for 4 or 5 years, right? We sat in living rooms with kids and their moms and dads, and we're like, hey, we're gonna take care of your kid, right? Like, and we're
Yeah.
gonna get him a degree, and we're gonna see him through. And I don't think that that's changed. Obviously, the time span that you have with kids has changed a little bit, but we try to be as real as we can with whether it's NIL, who we are, where we're at with this band process, right? Like I'm not gonna. You'd be amazed at the amount of kids. We were talking to a kid at Utah Tech, used to be Dixie State, also transitioning. Kid had no idea. Kid had no idea they weren't eligible for the tournament.
Wow.
And you're just going like, eventually, you're probably going to find out about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So like, you might as well be up front and up forward and, you know, hey, we have a lot of really good things here. This is one hiccup that we have where it stands right now. And we always say it, like the NCAA tomorrow could come out and be like, hey, right,
Rules
poof,
gone.
there it goes.
Yeah.
So, hey, as it stands today, we're not eligible for this. This is the way we're trying to go about it, right? We're trying to be, you know, sign contracts with Gazelle so we can get into CBI and do all this stuff and obviously try to, you know, spell it out for the kids. But it's hard, man. But I think the best thing we have going for us, and no shade on like U of E, like the Indiana State situation this year, like if guys in the Valley or whatever are telling you, you know, we're a two, you're not.
Right.
You're not.
Right.
You know, if you're outside that Power Six, and I guess it's with the Pac-12 dissolving, Power Five, whatever, you know, add in Mountain West, you're not getting two teams. You know, just being real.
Yeah. Which is, you know, I mean, it just makes me so mad because even I remember like just this past year, like there was talk of like bracketology talk that if James Madison doesn't win their conference tournament, they're probably not going to make it in, which I mean, you know, their season is, you know, started out really high, obviously, but, you know, had a little bit of struggles. But like you lose one game in your
You're done.
conference that you're not supposed to lose,
You're
and
done.
your resume's crap now. But you
You're
have
done.
to play, you know, 10 of those games each year.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know,
And it's hard. Like,
whereas
I mean, we're playing Indiana State again. We have a 4-year contract with them. So I was talking to Graves the other day. Like, you think people are scheduling Indiana State, even though they lost all those guys? You think
yeah,
people are
absolutely
scheduling
not.
Indiana State?
No.
So now you start talking about, and we're all over the place now, but I love it. So people aren't going to schedule those guys. So now you're saying Indiana State, who should be able to have a good home schedule,
Mhm.
they're not going to have them, right? Because people don't want to go there and play. People don't want to come to our place and play, you know. And like the scheduling aspect of all of this, and like, you know, some of those conferences, I know the Missouri Valley, you have to have like certain, you have to be a top 100 RPI in your scheduling and all this stuff. And it's like, guys, like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the OVC dropped us from 4 non-D1 games to 2 non-D1 games in hopes of strengthening our conference overall. Guys, you know, we need those 2 wins. You know, that's 2 games we're not playing Michigan State and Duke. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And it's just, it's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard to win. It's so hard. I mean, Moorhead was unreal this year. Moorhead was unreal last year, right? Like Mark Freeman didn't even play this year. He was unreal, you know, and they number 1 seed and get upset, and SEMO, who's the 5th, gets the NCAA tournament bid, but at least they got to go to the NIT last year. And now who's to say if they would now, you know? It's just, it's crazy.
Well, you know, what we need to do is reach out to Bruce Pearl and say, like, if you really care about the Screaming Eagles, you'll either let us come to Auburn or you'll come to Evansville and you'll just take the loss. You know, you're you know, you'll win enough games in the SEC. You know, just give us this one, help us get in there. We'll be in the tournament together. We'll have a good time.
It's a hard sell because it's always like Coach G beat them when they were at Tennessee. So that was when they were like ranked like 15th or 16th in the country. They beat them in an exhibition. I think that first year at Auburn, I think it was a double or triple OT game. It was like 105 to like 106. And then when we went down there, that's when they had Jabari. We were up 8 with 8 minutes to play. And then they went on like I don't know, it was like a 28-0 run on us. And we were like, oh man, they killed us. And then they went in, it might have been James Madison for their first regular season game. They finished the game on like a 37-0 run. And we were like, hey man, like we're better than those guys.
Yeah.
Better than those guys. Yeah. But hey, Bruce wants to play anytime.
Yeah. Bruce, you know, avid listener of the State of Basketball, obviously. so he's checking in. Yeah, I mean, seriously, I can't imagine what it's like. I mean, looking at, you know, just the short stint that Purdue Fort Wayne had with Indiana, and then even when Indiana State played Indiana, like they're not going to be playing those games ever again.
No,
Like that will
no,
never happen.
no. It's
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 like,
it's kind of similar to like when when we were D2, we would always look for Division I exhibitions, right? Get a
mhm,
little bit of money, right,
Yep.
and then obviously be on this stage, and like we were at UIndy. We go up there in 1920. We go to Loyola. They're fresh off like a Sweet 16 and
yeah,
beat the brakes off Loyola, right? And
Yeah.
you're like now in my seat, like if I'm Loyola, I'd be like, I would never, ever, ever schedule a Division II
yeah.
school, right? Like
Right.
same thing,
Especially a team who's as good as
right?
UIndy
And
was.
if you're a high major, like you're going to be calling those bottom 50 Ken Palm guys because you think it's a guarantee. I wouldn't play Indiana State. I wouldn't
Right.
play Carbondale, and like the Purdue Fort Wayne, like all those guys, man. It's tough going out there, man.
Yeah. Purdue Fort Wayne opened their season beating DePaul at DePaul, and Indiana played an exhibition against UIndy, and like there was people on Twitter being like, just so you know, like UIndy is good. Like if it's close, it's because UIndy does not suck. Like they are a
Right.
good D2 team.
Yeah.
But so obviously season ends. Players are transferring left and right. I don't remember how many people were in the portal, but it was what 1,500, something higher than that, like
I
crazy.
think with D1 and D2, it might be like 3,500.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
you get so many people in there, and obviously your two, I guess by the numbers, your most productive players transfer out: Jeremiah Hernandez and AJ Smith. And for a lot of programs, they have to replace a lot of pieces. You see people transferring up, and it's like, if you're a fan of a D1 team, it's like, we got who from this small school, but he shot 48% from three. Like, we'll take him. And it's like the D1 teams are like, we're just gonna, or that not D1 teams, the like high major teams are like, we're just gonna poach this guy and
Hmm.
bring him along. So how do you go about like thinking about like that being an option first of all, and like replacing that kind of production?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. Now, I will say, right, and like you guys kind of talked about it when you guys did your postseason recap of like, this year we only lost 58% of our scoring. Last year we lost like 90% of our
Yeah.
scoring, right?
Right. Right.
Like losing Swope and obviously the guys to graduation. And let's be real, like Swope killed it, right? Like I can't be mad at Swope for doing what Swope's doing, and obviously he's getting a little bit of money, you know, on the side. But I mean, like, dude, you were on the national stage at a much higher level than we could have given you. You know what I'm saying? But like you there's two ways that you can do it, right? You can be one of those coaches who's like the bitter guy, like, oh man, like,
Mm-hmm.
or you can be the guy that's like, hey man, like we got love for you, like wish you nothing but the best, like we're gonna follow your success. And like even with us, that goes back to Isaiah Stafford, who was Valpo's leading scorer. We
Yeah.
had Isaiah Stafford. We
Right.
recruited him when nobody
Right.
else recruited him. Elijah Jones was at Green Bay. Now he's going to college at Charleston. We recruited him. We had him, and so like it's hard. The landscape is changing, and a guy like Jerry. I knew Jerry when Jerry was in high school, being a Chicago guy, and Jerry was a top 5 player in the state of Illinois, and everybody thought he was going to be this like unbelievable dude when he went to Kent, and like it just didn't work out,
Mm-hmm.
when he went there. And we recruited Jerry on the thought of like, if we can get him back to who he was at that high school and get the confidence back in him, we think he can be really good. And I'll be the first one to say his first year with us probably did not go the way he wanted it to go
Right.
because he didn't play that much and he didn't score that much. And like, credit to him for staying, right? Because a lot of guys wouldn't do that when the adversity strikes. Everybody's looking, for the easier route, and he stuck it out. In the same way with AJ. AJ comes in. He's Mark Smith's little brother, who is the former Mr. Basketball in the state of Illinois. Mark had himself a little bit of a transfer history through his collegiate career, and Mark kind of bounced around. But like AJ comes in from combine prep, didn't have a whole lot of offers, and he's playing behind Jelani Simmons and Trevor Lakes,
Yeah.
two of our best players, and doesn't play. And he tried to take the route of going in the portal after his freshman year, and he went in and quickly realized that, hey man, it ain't a lot of things like better than us, especially when you
Yeah.
start looking downwards, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and we took him back, and credit to him, he was great. He was a beast. He probably should have been a second team All OVC guy. Um, you know, you don't want to lose guys, especially guys that have been in your program. Jerry for 2 years, obviously AJ for 2 years, and I think another year with AJ growing and developing, working on his outside shot a little bit more, left hand. I think going into his senior year, I think AJ could have been a borderline like high major guy, right? With his physical attributes. I mean, he's 6'7", he's put together, he jumps out the gym, just needs to hone some stuff.
Yeah.
But like Preston's a really good coach and James Madison's going to the NCAA tournament, right? So how can you keep guys, if we can't give them that, how can we keep guys around? And the same thing for Jerry. Jerry's in a position where he's a little bit older because of the COVID year. He's going to get out. He got out of here with an MBA, like Jerry's trying to earn some money. Like, let's call it what it is, right? And he's going to a level where I think he can produce, and hopefully he's successful. And I think, like I said, I think you can look at it one of two ways. You can be bitter about the situation or you can try to get better, and I think for us last year, we didn't get good enough. We tried to rely on the Division I transfer portal, maybe too much, right? And we took some guys that we thought, on, who they were, like where they were at, and we didn't take guys with production, and I think like that's a thing. And whether it's more head success with NAIA guys or Division II dudes or just guys who have played that want to come to this level and have put up numbers, you got to have guys that want to win. And you guys got to have guys that have produced. And I think this year we tried to switch the focus a lot more to the junior college ranks. We didn't delve too heavy portal, not to say we weren't contacting everybody and their mother, because that's what you do. But I think at the end of the day, we only took two guys out of the portal, three, excuse me, Jalen Randall, Stephen Olawani, and Big Alex, but proven guys at the level. So I'm not sure. Let's be real. We didn't do a good enough job replacing 90% of our team last year. And it showed in our record, right? I don't think, especially at this level, you start talking about those guys who are higher than you. It's like, okay, like 1 point, 2 points, 4 points. I mean, you're recruiting big dudes who are averaging 1.8 points a game and they're getting talked to by Power 5 programs. And you're going like, am I missing something here, fellas?
Right.
Like, so like I don't think at our level, and let's be real, like Indiana State, they just lost their whole entire starting five. That is hard. That is hard to rebuild when the majority of people who are going up have produced. The majority of people that are going down have not.
That's a great point.
So it's like you're kind of taking a crapshoot of like, okay, well, like Isaiah, right? Swope was 16, 17 points a game. Well, now we need to fill that with right. Last year we took Jordan Tillman, who is 8 points a game, and you're going like, okay, like, maybe Swack's down here, OVC, maybe like he can take a jump. We will never be able to get a 17 point per game guy and a D1 dude. We could maybe get a D2 or an NAIA, but like there's no science that's going to say that's going to translate across the board, right? Like for us in our limited sample size, Jordan, before Jordan left the team, Jordan OBC was like 8 points. When he came to us in the games that he played in, he was around that 8 to 10 points, right? So like, hey, maybe the SWAC is somewhat of an even playing field with the OVC, right? But Jerry was what, 4 points maybe at Kent, 3 points at Kent, and now all of a sudden explodes in his second year within our program. Jelani, when he was at Youngstown, he came to us as a D2 guy. Jelani wasn't putting up those numbers at Youngstown. So, I mean, you're always going to take a chance, but I do think it's important to know guys, and especially in the transfer portal, like, I mean, you can go crazy, and we have all these services and like interactive maps, and you're clicking on state of Illinois and you're seeing it, like, it's insane. And you can contact in a day, you can contact 300 kids. If you don't have a pre-existing relationship with any of these kids, you're literally just going to go on the basis of like, what is every kid going to say?
Yeah.
I didn't get my chance. I didn't get to play a whole lot, like they didn't use me the right way. And it's like, okay. But like when you have a pre-existing relationship, like we had with Jerry or Jelani, right? Or like Swope was in our backyard, right? But like you can kind of weed through that a little bit more because you know who that kid is, who the characters around him are, where you're not just kind of like flying by the seat of your pants, like calling some guy who's like, oh yeah, he's the best kid ever, man. Like he'll score like 20 points a game for you. And then like that kid's not scoring 20 a game for us,
Right.
So I mean, it's hard. And I think if you guys get all these dudes on the program, like, I think it would be awesome if you guys get every program. Like, I think those mids down, it is the wild, wild west, because if you grow and you develop and you harbor it, like, if you guys get Roger Powell on this podcast, Roger Powell will tell you right off the bat that every school in the country was calling Isaiah Stafford.
Oh
Just
yeah.
like if you
Oh,
get
I believe
Graves
it.
on it, every program in the country was calling Isaiah Swope.
Yeah.
And if Isaiah Swope didn't have knee surgery,
Yeah.
might not be at SLU,
Right.
Right.
because he dropped 27 and like 24 on Alabama and Michigan State.
Yep. I
Right,
mean,
right.
he's goes nuclear. I mean, he just really does. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so a long answer to that. It's impossible to replace production hand in hand, right? If you
Right,
need
yeah.
17 points, well, we're going to have to piece like 3 or 4 guys together that we think can be productive to get to that. And then obviously you hope that they continue to grow and develop in our program, which we've shown, especially for guards, in our system, they usually develop and they usually take that next step. But it's insanity, fellas. It's insanity.
Yeah, guess I never really noticed the kind of similarities between like you guys and Purdue Fort Wayne, but because going into this year, Purdue Fort Wayne replaced their entire starting lineup, and you know, I mean, they graduated something like 4,000 career points with their starting lineup,
They were
and
the they
so
were the oldest they were the oldest team in the NCAA our first year. So whatever 2022, 23, they
yeah,
were the
Mhm.
oldest team in the NCAA.
so like they have to replace all that, and they had some pretty good success early on, and then when things kind of went down the stretch of the Horizon League um like season, they just were losing games late. They were just kind of losing. It's like, yeah, it's a young team. They had to replace so many
Mhm.
pieces, and it's like, yeah, you guys had so many games that were close, losing on buzzer beaters, coming down in overtime, and it's like you just have to have people step up, produce more than they have, and
Right.
hope, I guess,
And it's like
develop them.
a little bit too of like, like Rashid was like unbelievable for Purdue Fort Wayne this year. Like unbelievable. Like Bello,
Yeah.
like unreal. Well, it's also hard that, especially given our circumstances of what it is, like, hey, a top Division II kid who is used to going to the NCAA tournament
Hmm.
isn't coming to us. They
Yeah.
are leaving Division II for a chance to play in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Period. Period.
Yeah.
Period. You know what I'm saying? So like a guy like him, he's like, hey man, you guys can't go to the NCAA tournament. Hey, I respect it when it's that Division II kid moving up, right?
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
you're leaving a top 10 program in the country at Division II to go to a place that can't. So, that's obviously another factor in the whole thing.
Yeah. No, and you talked a little bit about, guys moving up, whether that's from D2 to D1 or, going to the, lower, let's say low majors, mid majors, moving on. A lot of people, have been saying that the transfer portal and NIL in general are going to kill mid majors just because, players are going to be jumping like that. I guess what would your response to that be?
We're a farm system. I
Yeah.
mean, like truly, like I don't think it's going to kill it, because there's always going to be the same amount of players, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right. Right.
the talent across the board. Now, are you going to get these diamond in the roughs that like you get a 2-time transfer and that kid can't go anywhere else like it used to be? Yeah, like those days are done, right? But like I experienced the portal before it was a thing, when we had Struce, and Struce accomplished everything he could at the Division II level, and he comes in the office, he's like, hey man, like I'm transferring.
Hmm.
All right, man. Like at the time, he was like, "Hey, I want to go to the NBA," and I was like, "Oh, dude, I don't think you're gonna do that," and
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
put my foot in my mouth pretty quickly.
That was his whole
But like,
motivation.
yeah, I mean, like, but it's just like you will spend countless hours recruiting these kids, constant hours, developing them, and I'm not gonna sit here and be as asinine to say, like, hey, Swope wouldn't be anything without. No, Swope busted his ass on a daily basis. That kid
Yeah.
is in the gym more than anybody else, right? But like, hey man, like Swope, you had 2 Division II offers, man. It was us in Eastern New Mexico, brother. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
take a chance, you take that kid, and all of a sudden, like, out the door, So, and I don't want to say that's a lack of a loyalty. It's just it's a better opportunity. You can make some
Yeah.
money. You can go to a higher level. You can
Hmm.
make the NCAA tournament. but like it's a farm system. I think it's going to trickle down where I think now that kids can transfer as many times as they want. Hey, if you stay in the Division One with now cost of attendance and Pell and all that stuff, we can give you more money than it is if you go to a JUCO. So what's the point of going to a
Yeah.
JUCO and living in the middle of Kansas and doing that? Like, so like I think we will become this feeder of like, if you have and I think that's the hardest thing to have sustained success at this level is because your roster is constantly changing. We have every year that we've been here, even when we were D2, we have brought in at least 6 players.
Mhm.
This year we brought in 8.
Yeah.
Last year we brought in 7. Right? Like,
Yeah.
your best guys, hey, Jerry and AJ, hey fellas, AJ didn't have anything going on when he was a senior in high school. Goes prep year. Doesn't have anything going on when he was at prep year. Right? Like,
Yeah.
Jerry Hernandez was deciding between coming to USI and going to Central Connecticut State.
Huh. I didn't know that.
We're a feeder. You know what I'm saying? And like,
yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because Power Fives, and you can see it now, you literally have kids decommitting from mid majors and going to Power Fives, right? Because if you've already been a Division One athlete, you've already signed your national letter of intent, which is the only thing binding for you to go to a university. If you are a transfer, you sign a grant and aid, which basically says like, hey, when you get to school, this is what you'll get, your scholarship money, all that stuff. You have people right now decommitting from programs that they committed to because a Power Five is panicking and saying, oh my gosh, like we don't have a team.
Right.
What did they offer?
Still,
What did they offer you NIL? We'll triple it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Fill those spots.
And like I said, I don't think it's going to kill it because there's always going to be competition at that level. And whether it's D2 guys moving up, right, or guys that maybe, let's say you're now going on your second transfer, you were really good. Jerry, he didn't play at all in the MAC really when he began, comes to us and now he's back in the MAC. So let's say Jerry kills it in the MAC, and then Jerry goes up to a higher level like Power Five and doesn't play, right, and then comes back. Okay, like a little like Ali was at Akron, goes to Butler, doesn't play, goes back to Akron. He's unbelievable. I think you'll have that.
Sparks at Ball State too,
and he's going to go back. And I think you'll always have those guys kind of reverting back to the level of what it is because at the end of the day, NIL and all this stuff, and we've kind of tried to say this of like, okay, you can get the flash in the pan money, right, of going to a place. And obviously, if you can go to high major, like Graves told me, like, those guys, that starting 5 now is like $3 million like evaluation for those 5 guys. Like, it's unbelievable, right? Like, if you can make that generational wealth, man, like, holy cow, like, power to you. But when you start talking about the difference between OVC and maybe the Valley and the money of what it is, maybe like OVC Horizon, well, let's say that Horizon team is offering you $20,000 more. Okay, but if you go to that level and you don't produce, right?
Right.
Like,
what do you have now?
If you're 17 a game in a system in the OVC, and we're giving you a little bit of NIL, you go to another place. Okay, well, 17 a game in the OVC gets you here. What does that do to reflect your future earnings of you going professional, your first contract, all that stuff? Is it better to be 7-8 a game and in kind of just a step up from where we're at, or is it better to be the guy and score 20? And I think that's conversations, and the more times where you see guys like Peyton who, hey man, that dude probably made a ton of money going to Indiana for a year.
Yeah.
Probably made a ton of money.
I'm sure.
Didn't play.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, I think the more of those situations are kind of like at the forefront of what is happening in this new landscape of NIL and guys being able to transfer and do all that stuff, I think it'll work itself out. But I think on the flip side of that is like, it's a hard pill to swallow for coaches because if a kid doesn't play, he's probably going to transfer, right? There's no longer this idea of I'm going to grow, I'm going to develop in the program, right? I'm a bite my time, you know, like that's not a thing. It's just like, all right, like AJ last year, like he was like, I'm done, I'm out. And then you're playing behind 2 all-conference players. And like last year we were winning games, so it's hard to tell a kid who's, hey dude, you're not playing and we're winning, right? Like that's tough.
Yeah.
If you're playing and you're really good, probably going to leave.
Yeah.
Right. If you're coaching a kid super hard and you're holding him accountable and he can't handle that, that kid's going to leave. If you coddle the kid and let him do whatever he wants to do, kid's going to leave. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and I know it's redundant as a broken record. Like I'm a big proponent of like in the times that are the toughest that you've ever experienced in your life is the times that you grow the most as a human being, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Adversity strikes. That's how you learn. That's how you develop. That's how you become a man. That's how you progress through life. Because like we always say, like fellas, like what we're doing to you when we coach you is nothing that your boss isn't going to do to you when you get out in
Yep.
the real world. Right. And hey, that boss is going to talk to you in a way that you don't like. What are you going to do? I
Yeah.
quit. I'm gonna get a different job, right? Like
Right.
eventually in the real world that catches up with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, so I don't think it's gonna kill it. I just think it's gonna be a lot harder for sustained success over the years, because when you're getting, and I don't know what the figure was this year. I think last year it was like 5 or 6 players a team in the OVC, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect from SEMO. SEMO had an unbelievable team. Unbelievable. Philip Russell leaves. Chris Harris graduates. They go from being the NCAA tournament, now they were 5th seed, to not even being in the OVC conference tournament because
Mm-hmm.
you can't reload consistently. Maybe
Yeah.
year 2, those guys that you think, like how Jerry took this step of progressing, but like it's hard. It's hard to have
Yeah.
sustained success when you're getting, I mean, I don't want to use the term poach, but like, hey, those upper levels are going like, hey, thank you for your work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for identifying this guy. We'll take him off your hands.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I think Peyton Sparks is a really good example because, he would not, I mean, they had Trace Jackson Davis at Indiana. He was not going to be playing, he was not going to be sniffing minutes at Indiana while he was there, and, grew up an Indiana guy, took a chance, played, got to, be there for a season at like his dream school. And then seemingly, I mean, I haven't talked to Mike Lewis about this, but seemingly got welcomed back home at Ball State and gets to go back to where he was thriving. So like
Right.
that's awesome. And then there's people like very, very seldom do you see people like Jalen Jackson at Purdue Fort Wayne who wanted to play at Purdue Fort Wayne. Like people want
Right.
to play at Duke, North Carolina, Indiana. Like that's where they want to go. So like, can you blame someone for being like, oh, I did really well at Indiana State, I'm going to go to Texas? Like you can't blame them for that, obviously, unless you're, like you said, unless you're bitter about it as a coach.
Right. And I think that's always like, let's be real. Okay. There's a huge difference in being where we're at, the
Mhm.
Valley, Horizon, and you going Power 5. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
like we
Like,
can't even sit
you
here
wouldn't
and
you
say
wouldn't tell your player no, right? You'd be like, dude,
no,
like your earning
no.
window is small for this. Like you'd be stupid
My
not to.
my best story of saying no was, so Struce leaves, right? He's like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm going to the transfer portal. Struce's final 3 was Xavier, uh, DePaul, and maybe it was Ohio State with Holtman, I think. So he goes on like all these visits, and like
Mhm.
Max's mom is in like the Hall of Fame at DePaul, and like I grew up 2 blocks away from DePaul, and they were terrible, right? Like
Yep.
Lato's
Yeah.
there, they're god awful. And so Max commits to DePaul, and I'm out at a AAU event. It's when Chris Mack is still at Xavier.
Mhm.
Chris Mack walks in, he looks down at my shirt, sees my Lewis logo, and he just looks at me. He goes, "What the hell, man?" I go, "Hey, man, like I don't know, man. I don't know. I wouldn't have gone there, but it worked out. It worked out well for him. But like, I think that's like Max's experience when we were D2 and Max leaving, and Coach G did that with Tate Hall, who was an Indiana kid, ends up transferring to Loyola after all that success, and like he was good. Like probably could have been a D2 All American and had more accolades, but like goes
Mhm.
to a winning program, goes to the NCAA tournament. Like we've experienced that, so I think it's not like we're coming into this like where it's like, oh man, like no, you got to, because the only thing that's going to happen is if you're bitter about it, like AJ Smith is going to go back home and he's going to be like, hey man, like those dudes are dicks,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
and
Right.
we don't want that. Like, hey AJ, like best of luck to you, man. Jerry,
Yeah.
go do your thing, man. We'll be following, we'll be watching you. It hurts, it stings, but like
Yeah.
we got to move on.
Yeah. Love to have you, but obviously do what's best
Right.
for you and what you think is right for sure.
Right.
Obviously, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Southern Indiana isn't shilling out millions of dollars for players in the NIL sphere, but
we
like
were just below the $5 million asking price for the guy who just got
yeah,
it. So we're right there.
you're like,
We're
oh
right
man,
there.
we could do like 1.5.
Right.
So obviously you're not coming in with those kind of deals. So what? I obviously don't go into numbers or anything, but like, what's it like just NIL and at USI because players have agents now. They've got people who just throw out a number and
Right.
you have to meet it or not. Like, what is that like?
I mean, it's new. It's new, and like we're fortunate enough where we started our collective last year, the Eagles Nest Collective.
Mhm.
And we're trying to navigate the space of really trying to go off what some high majors are doing. Obviously, not with the dollar amounts, but
Yeah.
years within the program. Base salaries, incentivized bonuses for both academic and athletic achievement. And then obviously tying that all around the enrichment of Evansville. So guys that sign contracts with the Eagles Nest Collective are doing community service and they're doing habitat and they're at the food bank, and it's not just you're getting this money and
Yeah.
doing that, because I don't think that's a good staple for the community.
Yeah.
You know, we're new to it and it's growing, right? And we're
Yeah.
getting some lanes of some passive income where it's going to continue to go. Um, I don't know enough about the entire OVC to know, hey, these guys got this much, these guys got this much.
Yeah.
I know some Valley programs have put their teams together for $80,000 for the guys that they want to get, right? And I know that Youngstown State is like $350,000, right? And then Kansas is 5 million, right?
Yeah.
So like, where's it fall in? I think the biggest thing for us is going back to the realness of what it is, right? I'm not going to sit in front of a kid, and we're not going to sit in front of a student athlete and be like, "Hey, man, we'll give you $100,000," you know,
Yeah.
just like we'll go to the NCAA tournament. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Just sign.
Right.
right?
Just sign this paper.
Because it's eventually just going to be bad business and a bad deal. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think the money that we're trying to do and how we're trying to grow this is a value that might not be what the kid's market value is worth, but it's a dollar figure that right now I can guarantee you that we can give you, and like you come in and kill it, and there's other local businesses and opportunities for you to come in here and get NIL. Hey man, more power to you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like I think I think the horror stories and what you're hearing more and more in the industry is guys promising a whole lot of money and dudes coming back and they ain't getting that money.
Yeah.
Like I know an
Yeah.
ACC school this year that was getting monthly checks for a whole lot of money, and those monthly checks didn't hit. And it was a day before they were about to play Duke, and they just refused to do anything. They
Oh,
just didn't practice till checks got cut.
oh wow.
Wow.
So it's like it's it's hit or miss, and
Yeah.
you're dealing with agents and you're dealing with handlers, and guys want finder fees.
And it
And
probably looks so different everywhere.
I mean it's impossible to know, because at those higher places it's the money is, I mean, what's Cal Party getting now? Like
Yeah.
$12 million in NIL. I think Dusty May just came out the other day and said like 70% of his job now is seeking NIL money, and
Mhm.
70% of what you do on a daily basis is asking people, for money. And I think, especially for us as we transition, we're in a really tough spot, right? We're
Yeah.
transitioning from an operating budget of $4 million, and we're trying to get to like 15, $16 million.
Yeah.
So it's hard for the university, unlike Alabama and IU, who their ads come out and they go, don't donate money to the A club anymore, just give it to
Yep.
football or give it to basketball.
Right.
Well, we're in a tough
Right.
situation where, like, hey, we need operating budgets, right? We need
Yeah.
recruiting budgets. So it's hard to say from a university like, hey, we're going to take these funds and now it's just going to go to student athletes and it's not going to go to the varsity club. And so I mean there's a tons of moving parts. But I mean, at the end of the day, when a handler calls me and he asks for $100,000, like, hey brother, like we don't have it.
Yeah.
Like,
Like, "Oh,
you know what
sorry,
I
this
mean?
guy."
It's just
Yeah.
like, right, just keep it moving. And I think, you know, I think agents agents can help because they know the landscape, but those guys are also searching for the highest dollar amount because they're trying to get their commission. They're trying to get their cut. You know what I mean? So like
Mm-hmm.
we're new to it. I think we're further ahead with kind of the development and ideas that we have, especially in our community of, you know, and I'm not going to say the guys are just giving money to guys just to give money to guys, but like I don't think we have a kind of older fan base, and I don't think our fans would just appreciate just us like
Yeah.
throwing money at a guy if he's
Just
not
filling
doing
out.
anything. Yeah,
Right.
like to
Yeah.
you know, to earn it, to better our community, to better our city. You know, so we're kind of walking that fine line. But I mean, it's recruiting now has almost nothing to do about your school. Has almost nothing to do about the academic programs that you have. Doesn't really have anything to do about your campus life, where you're located. It has to do with money and playing time, and that
Yeah.
is it. And you know,
Just
I think it's you have guys committing on Zoom calls, never even going to
never
campus
seen the
and just
school.
being, yeah, how much money are you gonna give
Yeah.
me? Can I
Right.
play? Yeah, you're gonna play, and we're gonna give you X number of dollars. Cool, man, I'm in.
Yeah. It's
And it's
like
just like,
you can't blame them to an extent, but also it's just sad to like, that's the stuff that like people say will like turn them off from college sports and everything. Is like there used to be so much that you could rally behind, and like for me that's like what really made me have an affinity for college basketball as opposed to like the NBA. Is like people want to be there, they love it,
right.
like they love the school as much as I love the school. But you're moving away from that a little bit. Obviously, you still have that, but it you see a lot of
It's a
different
lot
things
less.
now.
It's a lot less ties. I mean, let's be real, right? Like Duke lost like 7 dudes in the portal, 8
Mhm.
dudes in the portal. Leaving Duke?
Yeah,
Leaving
Right.
Duke?
seriously.
Right.
Like
You
you
stay at
leaving
Duke,
Duke? You know
you're
what I'm saying? And
set
it's
for
just like
life.
it's just it's a wild thing where I truly believe it. You know, it used to be about the school and somewhat academic programs, right? And the relationship and the culture that you had, and it's just like, and then if I'm not a fit here, I'm out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And unless of
Yeah.
those adverse situations of putting the time in and building it up and growing and developing, it's like that's kind of where we're at in society, anyways. It's flash in the pan, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
like we said before, I'm never going to hate on a kid for generational wealth. I mean,
Oh, for
you can
sure.
take care of your family, especially, let's be real, the certain demographics of who we all recruit.
Yeah.
Man, hey, if you can get your mom out of wherever she is and help your family, more power to you, man.
Mhm.
More power to
Yeah.
you. But like I do think a lot of guys are just chasing a check without seeing if it's going to be a good fit in the long run for them as far as, can you be successful academically? Because at the end of the day, some of these dudes are going 34 transfers. Like, are you
Yeah.
are all those credits transferring, dude? Like, are you
Right.
actually
Like,
going to
what
get
are
out
you
of it
Right.
with a
you
degree?
doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you
Yeah.
just putting all your eggs and apples in this, in this basket? And some of those guys are going to be in for a rude awakening when they end up making more money. And I mean, it's everywhere, right? Like Tashidwe made more money his senior year than if he
Yeah.
would have gone to the NBA. But like, you start talking about the low to mid guys, like, I mean, for a rude awakening when you get your first overseas
Yep.
contract and you're going like taking a pay cut. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
For
Yeah.
So,
real.
Yeah.
I and like I said, the word loyalty I don't think is like the right word because like, kids now
Yeah.
have freedom to do what they want to do, and I think that that's great. But I do think that there's less value in the institution, if that makes sense, right? Less things, holding you in place than probably there used to be of like the love, for a university, right? And I think you
Mhm.
can see that. I mean, it's my wife is Alabama diehard. She is Roll Tide through and through. Like guys leaving Alabama. You know what I mean? Guys leaving
Yeah.
Georgia. They just won a national championship. Like what? Like what?
Right.
What are we
Yeah.
doing?
Just
So
unheard of
it's
years
hard,
ago.
right? It's hard. You're leaving winning to go chase a check, and
Yeah.
it's a different era, man.
Well, when you guys are getting ready to have your like fundraiser golf outing, Jaren and I are not all-time donor guys, but we are all-time vibes guys. So just sneak
There
us
we
on the
go.
list. We'll be down
Let's
there.
go.
We'll go out and try and get you as much cash as
Let's go.
possible. We'll be like, I mean, we'll put us in the group with the people that you think you might be able to squeeze the most out of, and we'll be like, I mean, gonna be eligible for the NCAA tournament here soon.
We're right around
Really
we're right around
soon.
the corner. And that's like it's so true is like when you build your roster, for this year, you're already turning around and hey man, like if we're good this year with where we're at with our
Mhm.
NIL, like, hey man, like we need to be doing stuff because as we progress and we get closer to that, hopefully we can get on higher level athletes.
Yep.
We need to be
Yeah.
at a different level when we start to be, NCAA eligible, and that's everything. That's budget, that's recruiting, NIL stuff. I mean, we did worldwide recruiting this year, man. We went all over the place, man. So, it's tough. It's tough. It's changing, and it's hard for the low guys, who don't have a whole lot of money. When you can just lose a kid because somebody calls and says, "Hey, we'll give you $50,000," and that kid's like, "Oh yeah, sure,"
Yeah.
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Well, let's you kind of mentioned it very briefly here a second ago, but your roster now, it seems to be pretty much complete.
We are done.
Um,
Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord.
You could take
awesome.
5 minutes off. There you go.
We got like 3 days. We got 3 days, so it was nice. And now everybody's back for summer school. So
Nice, nice. But so based on that roster, what can we expect or what should we expect from this team next year? Who are some of those guys that you think fans should get excited about? We talked about the milkman earlier, huge locker room guy, puts in the work, but is there anyone else kind of on the team that you really think the fans can rally behind?
yeah, I mean, I think when we set out this year, I think we weren't deep enough, and I think obviously the best thing we can do is we go through the recruiting process is obviously be able to reflect back, on the season, where we were kind of deficient in. I don't think we had enough bodies. I don't think we had enough guard depth. Um, and that's hard when we lost the guys that we lost. We had guys
Yeah,
that could make plays at the end of the game. Give the ball
Yeah.
to
yeah,
Swope, he's going to make a play. Throw the ball into JP, he's going to make a play. You know what I mean? And so on and so forth. So I think really when we were looking at it and obviously judging, and looking at the OVC, it's a guards league. And the best players in this league. Minix was kind of a freak this year in the OVC, but it is a guard heavy league, man. And
yeah,
we need to get some dudes. And we really sought out not so many high school guys, but really invested a lot of time, money, and effort into the JUCO ranks and tried to be in we considered kind of the top regions, in the country, and being able to obviously pull from Region 5, Region 6, Region 8. You're talking about the Jayhawk, you're talking about Florida, and you're talking about Texas, New Mexico, like some of the best JUCO basketball you can get. So on top of the guys, and like I said earlier, we're not having to replace as much. Obviously, losing two guys that were double figures,
Yeah.
way better than losing four, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But obviously I think Noki comes back as our leading returner. Ryan Hall did a lot of good things. Just need to get him more consistent. Campion, I think, was third or fourth in assists in the league. Hiddle was really good for us. Before he broke his foot. And he's got to get back into shape and back into it. And then we had a freshman last year, Luther Smith, who was at Hamilton Sussex, which is where Pat Baldwin Jr. played. He was like 29, 30 a game in high school. So we need to see,
Oh, wow.
how he kind of develops and who he can be. And then obviously Sam, the Merv man,
Our
Sam Mervis,
guy.
was great for us, in that backup role and even started some games for us. So, building on those guys that are returning, and obviously those guys are going to be, the culture dudes who are trying to, teach and lead these guys and, move them forward. But, I can't be more excited about this group of 8 that we brought in. Braxton Jones was as high as 15th ranked in the country for JUCO rankings. I think he finished at 31. 19 points a game in the Jayhawk, can score it. Was at the Division I level at Hartford. We're really high on him. We think he's really good. Damani Harrison was at Tallahassee, was trending a whole lot higher than us. Unfortunately, he had a
Mhm.
leg injury, but 6'5", 6'6", shoots the heck out of the ball. Braxton was almost 40. Damani's numbers dropped a little bit, but another guy who can really shoot the ball, be disruptive. Sam Cody, it's a 6'3" point guard. He was third in assists in the country at West Texas JUCO. Great size, physical. Kind of reminds you of those Purdue Fort Wayne guards with the bigger size and
yeah.
body.
Mhm.
Just a dog, man. He has a chance to be super special. Jalen Randall, we just got from Alabama A&M. He was about 7 points a game. Another 6'5" wing, can be dynamic, getting downhill. Jared Washington was a JUCO All-American honorable mention. Shoots the heck out of the ball, 40% from three. Good size, 6'3". just kind of bucket getter, man.
We like shooting here. We
and that's
love
like
having shooting.
when we and a lot of it had to do with Trevor Lakes and obviously Swope too and Jelani. But that first year for us, we were top 50 in a ton of offensive categories in Division One. We need to get back to that. We need to be able to shoot the
Yeah.
ball, stretch the floor, and I think obviously that guard depth that we just kind of talked about is huge. And then we took Stephen Olawani from Virginia Military Institute, who was like 7-6, 7-5. Super athletic. He's only a sophomore, obviously playing in a tougher conference against bigger bodies.
Yeah.
We think the sky is the limit for him, man. Athletic, can be a 5, can be a 4. Really, really intrigued with him, as well as the milkman at the 4. We know what he can do. Pick and pop. We played him at the 5 last year. It's a tough
Yep.
guard for opposing 5s. And then we're excited about Big Alex, man. He's a big dude. He was at UT Rio Grande Valley, 7-footer. Just started playing basketball not too many years ago. Great feet, good hands, can do some stuff around the basket. So our 8 guys, man, we're bringing in. I think all have a chance to be competing for minutes, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think last year we weren't competitive enough when it came to practices. We knew who the guys were, and I think they knew who they were. We didn't have enough guys scrapping and clawing to be competitive.
You need people pushing everyone.
Yeah. And I think this year you're getting a good mix of a lot of versatility, a lot of guys who can move from the 1 to the 2, the 2 to the 1, 2 to the 3, 3 to the 4, where we can be very versatile in what we're trying to do. So, hey, man, obviously there's not a science to it, but going into this, I think we feel really good about what we accomplished recruiting, given all the hurdles that we have to get through. But like everybody else in the country, man, we look good on paper, but we'll see. And we're anxious. We got practice tomorrow at 10:30, so it'll be the first look at the new Screaming Eagles, man. But we're excited to get after it, man, with these guys. And I think the biggest thing we didn't talk about it. We're motto, like our Coach G's motto is academics, character, basketball. We're not going to sacrifice 1 and 2 for the 3. So all these guys that are coming in are high character guys that can get it done in the classroom and obviously be able to hopefully put the ball in the hole a little bit. So we're excited about this group, man. And I think Screaming Eagle fans are going to be excited about the product we're putting out there this year.
There's I don't know, maybe there's something about 7-footers in the state of Indiana who started playing basketball late. I don't know. Maybe that's like hopefully that'll be a trend, right?
Just don't tell Painter about him going into his senior year.
Yeah. Well,
maybe we can keep him.
If he's not, is he 7'3" or more? He's got to be like 7'3", 7'4", right? Okay,
7.
you're good.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
That's like his point guards. Well, the last thing, is tell Sam, man. We want to immortalize him on that wall behind Jaren. We want.
There's a beautiful spot right there.
Yeah, we'll shift anything. We'll put him right there.
Honestly, he can go right. If I can get my right there.
Move Purdue. We can move Purdue 4-way now there for a Merv jersey.
Yeah, put it on there. Get some signatures. Hand him a box tomorrow at practice. Be like, your job.
We'll get you guys some gear. We'll get you guys some gear, no doubt, man. Like I said earlier, man, this is amazing, and especially for us as we kind of make this transition. Anything we can do, to pump our brand out and make ourselves more known, among the state and across the country for that matter. Our university never had more hits or clicks than it ever had in its history than when we were up at Duke. And that's the power of basketball and athletics. And we're building something special here, man. And I think it's going to start taking shape the closer we can get to this ban and seeing through it, man. I truly believe we got a sleeping giant here, and we have the fan base, and we've been back-to-back second in attendance both years, and some of that might be a little bit of cap from some other schools. Not going to say any names, but our arena, our fan base, man, the kids that we get, it's an awesome place, man. And like I said, we're super grateful for you guys, being involved and everything you guys do for everybody in the state, man. I know everybody's appreciative.
Yeah, we're trying to get the word out. I was a teacher. I'm a stay-home dad now, but anyway, I would play basketball.
The best job.
Yeah, for sure. I play basketball with some of my former coworkers at my old school, and the gym teacher, she is from Evansville.
Okay.
And I was talking something about Ben Humrichous over at Evansville, and then I said something, or I was like, "Hey, do you know where I can get some Screaming Eagles gear?" And she's like, "Why do you want some USI
Yeah,
gear?" And I was like, "They're the Screaming Eagle, like, what do you mean?" Like,
Right.
we'll get her a shirt too.
yeah,
Like,
she was
no,
like,
yeah,
"It's,"
we'll get
she's
her a
like,
shirt.
"It's Aces," and I was like, "No, no, 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 no.
We're
It's everybody." But
we're
I like
converting
people up
one
here need
fan
to
at a
know.
time.
Yeah, so, we obviously love
Absolutely.
all the schools, which, is very it makes for a very fun timeline when you're tweeting about Purdue and tweeting about IU in the same night, and then you're just like, "Do I like this tweet? Do this tweet's kinda not gonna go well for us," but, you know,
Right.
Right.
make one side mad, one side happy, but, we are big supporters of the Screaming Eagles.
And like I said, anytime you guys want to come down there, man, I'm gonna hold you to the golf outing, hold you guys to a
Yeah. We'll
certain percentage of revenue. All right.
Yeah, we'll we'll pay the green fees. We'll just, like, conveniently be there that day and be like, "Oh, these 2 guys don't have partners. Oh, these guys are just here."
Throw them in, throw them
Yeah.
in. These are the closers. We'll
Yeah.
tell everybody you guys are the
That's us.
closers. Yeah. No, but like I said, man, appreciate everything you guys do, man, and truly an honor, man, to get on here and talk shop with you guys. And yeah, man, feel like I could do this forever. We've only been 2 hours, man. I just
Yeah.
love talking hoops, man. And like I said, super appreciative of you guys, man.
Yeah, no, we're glad that you were able to come on. I mean, Adam and I are the same way. I mean, that's the whole reason we started this podcast, right? We love talking hoops. He and I would throughout every game, text each other back and forth. We figured, okay, well, we talk about it enough. Why don't we just start a podcast, see where it goes?
Yeah.
And here we are, just because it's
Right.
all love of the game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, man, we appreciate everything you guys do, man. It's awesome. It's really awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you again. Appreciate you coming on. We'll go ahead and we'll let you go. We'll wrap up our episode, and then we'll make sure to reach out to you and give you our address for some Mervis
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I'm gonna send you guys some gear, and I'll get Merv on some Merv merchandise. His
Let's
dad
go.
runs Mervis Industries, which is in Danville, Illinois, which
Okay.
is where Coach Gerard grew up. He's got some sweet Mervis Industries shirts that I'm sure he can get
Okay.
up there in a little care package as well. So yeah,
Yes.
man,
We'll take it.
we'll get you guys geared up, man. I promise, I promise. But appreciate it,
Awesome.
and go Screaming Eagles, man.
Go
For
Screagles.
sure.
All right. Thanks, Coach. That was incredible.
That was a lot of
It was
fun.
yeah, great conversation. I could sit here and talk to Coach Sprue for hours. But anything else we want to wrap up? I mean, I have no words. That was just that good.
I it's, he delivered in every way that I thought he would and more. It's just learned so much about just the program, what it takes at that level to succeed, and sometimes you just got to go to Hawaii for a year and not see the ocean.
Yeah, I
All it
mean,
takes.
I can't imagine. I mean, I could. I absolutely believe it, but it'd be hard. But it
Mhm.
worked out. He ended up in a great spot. Happy he's here in the state.
Yeah.
But clock is showing quadruple zeros, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast. We will see you next week. And remember, in 49 states,
It's just basketball.